Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Jackson County Board of Commissioners February 18th, 2020 board meeting to order. At this time, I would ask all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Mahoney.
Dear gracious God, we come to you in prayer tonight and ask that you guide our decisions and guide our heart, God, when we come into this room as commissioners who have stepped up to represent the people who elected us to be there. We just ask that everyone have a positive night and thank everybody for coming out tonight, Lord, and I hope everybody gets home safely after the meeting and just watch over us, Lord, and make sure that our hearts are in the right place making the decisions that we are assigned to make tonight. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bear? Walls? Commissioner Kennedy?
Present.
Commissioner Duckham? Commissioner Tompkins? Commissioner Mahoney?
Present.
Commissioner Williams?
Present.
Commissioner Elwell?
Here.
Chairman Shotwell?
Present.
8 present.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I have a motion and support. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Duly carried. We have no awards and recognition. We have no communications nor petitions. We have no special orders nor public hearings, and at this time, we've arrived at the first opportunity for public comment. Public comment guidelines. Each individual will state their name, and you will have 3 minutes to address the board. You may only address the board under this public comment opportunity and may not yield your time to others. Board members will not debate nor answer questions at this time, and please direct your comment to the boards. First opportunity for public comment. You may present it right here. Go ahead and pass it out. You may go ahead.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Cindy Eby, and I am part of the Jackson Property Tax Foreclosure Prevention Project. We have been working in the city for 2 years and then in the county. This is our first year in the county. We knocked on or leafleted 630 doors this year of people who are facing tax foreclosure. Some of those people, of course, will pay their taxes. Some of them will get assistance from the resources that we provided them, but some of them will not have any resources or any way to pay their taxes. The tax foreclosure is harmful. Not only it's devastating to the family, but of course it affects every taxing authority, the city of Jackson and every township, negatively by the loss of taxes for the period of time that those properties are not on the tax rolls. A lot of the people in tax foreclosure are elderly, handicapped, people and people who've suffered a family, illness or something like that. My wish is that we could get everybody caught up and then start working with people at the point where they get turned over to the county to help them budget and come up with a payment plan and keep these houses on the tax rolls and keep people in their houses. So I've given you all an invitation to a fundraiser that I think is going to be pretty wonderful. It's a farm-to-table fundraiser. We'll be showcasing a lot of our local farm products, pork, cheese, eggs, maple syrup, as many things as I can find. If you know of any products that I'm missing, please let me know. I'd like to have them there. Whitefish from the lake, and so on. So I just hope that you can all find it in your hearts to help the most vulnerable people. All this money will go through Community Action Agency, who's the fiduciary for this fundraiser, and for a lot of my work with tax foreclosed people. So anyway, I thank you in advance for your donations. Thank you. If anybody want to raise their hand, I'll give you a...
Hello, my name is Becky McKinney. I live in Parma, and I'd like to speak to two issues today. The first is regarding the new redistricting commission in the state of Michigan, and I've shared information with all of the commissioners and have more available for anybody in the audience who'd like that. This is a new process in which the legislature, rather than the legislature drawing the boundary lines for voting districts in the state, the task is now assigned to an independent commission. So we're promoting this and hoping that the public will get interested in this and apply. The white page, if you get one of these, gives information about who's eligible, how they'll be selected, when the process will begin. The half-page flyer tells more about what's required of those who are applying to be on the commission. It's a paid position, about $40,000 annually, and your employer must hold your job for you while you serve. So there's workshops coming up, and just if you are aware of people that would be good applicants to the commission, I hope that you will promote that. My second issue regards the proposal to make Jackson County a Second Amendment sanctuary county. According to MLive, the resolution would support the county sheriff and prosecutor to use their sound discretion to not enforce against any citizen an unconstitutional firearms law. Now, I understand this is due to concerns about red flag laws that may be on the horizon. I have several questions and concerns about this resolution. First, who determines which firearms laws are unconstitutional? It seems to me that that is the role of the court system, not local law enforcement. Second, there were over 112,000 registered voters in Jackson County as of the 2018 election. My understanding is that the local group supporting this resolution has about 230 members on its Facebook page. Now that leaves 111,900 some voters not heard from. That's too big of a concern to be decided by so few. 65% of gun deaths are due to suicide. How would any of you feel to have made Jackson County a sanctuary county and learn of deaths that happened because friends and family members could not take a gun from someone who would harm themselves or someone else, and local law enforcement would not step in?
30 seconds,
It makes no
ma'am.
sense, thank you, to say that the way to prevent gun violence is through better mental health care, while at the same time refusing to take guns from people suffering from mental illness. The worst-case scenario, in case someone were to call in about a gun owner, would be that that person would be without their firearms for a time until it was sorted out. The worst-case scenario, if law enforcement does not take guns from dangerous people, is that
Ma'am, your
someone dies.
time's
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Michael Swope, a citizen of Blackman Township. I'm here to support Second Amendment rights, and I also offer another resolution that you may want to consider. Be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the County of Jackson, State of Michigan, hereby acknowledges and reaffirms the rights of citizens of this county to keep and bear arms as protected by the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States and by Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution of the State of Michigan. And be it further resolved that all officials, employees, and law enforcement officers of this county are directed to fulfill their sworn oaths sworn oaths, to uphold and defend said rights of citizens as required by the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan in all circumstances, including cases when legislation or orders in violation of said rights may be issued by other authority. The previous speaker asked some pertinent questions about regarding proposed red flag laws. These are unconstitutional on their face. I should not have to have sanctuary to exercise my constitutional rights. Those rights are mine by virtue of my birth and protected by the Constitution of this nation and the Constitution of this state. I should not be unconstitutionally deprived of that right unless judicial process has been followed via the Fifth Amendment rather than through some administrative apparatus. The lady asked a question, well, what could be the possible harm for temporary deprivation of a firearm? Ask the people at the church in Texas from 3 weeks ago what that might have meant. People like the previous speaker, people like Michael Bloomberg, would consign people to their deaths in the name of some artificial protection. Law enforcement officers cannot be there all the time. Evil knows no particular place, no particular time. That is why we have the rights to carry and bear and own arms. Again, I should not need sanctuary to exercise rights that are mine to begin with. Unlike sanctuary cities, which illegally and immorally exempt themselves from the law in favor of invading foreign nationals and privilege them over their own citizens. Commissioners, whichever version of resolution you pass tonight, I urge you to pass it in support of the Second Amendment of the Constitution in Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution of the State of Michigan and fulfill your obligation to the citizens. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Gallagher. I live in Summit Township. My grandfather killed himself with a gun when I was a senior in high school in the house he lived in right next door to me here in Jackson. Suicide attempts with a gun end in death 85% of the time, compared with all other means of attempted suicide, which end in death 5% of the time. I support the Second Amendment, and I also support responsible gun laws. We need laws to keep us safe and keep our loved ones safe. We need our law enforcement officials to enforce those laws to keep our communities safe. It is up to the courts to determine the constitutionality of laws, not prosecutors or sheriffs or county commissions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Terry McKinnon, and I live in Leone Township. I come here tonight because I am a survivor. I'm a survivor of domestic violence in a situation where I was trapped and in fear for my life and my family's life. I had to run and leave everything I knew and hide to save my life because law enforcement would not take the appropriate action. The person I was afraid of ended up in jail less than a year later for attempted murder. And but for the grace of God, that would have been me. It is up to judges and our court system to decide what laws are constitutional. That is their job. And there's a reason we have these separations of powers. It is not the job of this county commission to take resolutions up that potentially put women and children's lives at risk. And the message you send here tonight to those women, those children that are stuck in abusive homes because their mothers are afraid to leave because their life is in danger, those women who are afraid every single day for their life, the message you send to them tonight is whether or not you care. Not everybody deserves to have a gun. And I support the Second Amendment, and I myself have had my own CPL training. I grew up in a family of hunters and sportsmen, and I believe if you're a law-abiding citizen and you are not a danger, you should have a gun. But our law enforcement officers should have the ability to protect people by removing weapons from people that are a danger to our society. I believe that with my heart, and I've lived that, and I hope you make the right choice.
Good evening. My name is Marcy Jankovich, and while I'm co-leader of the Well-Armed Women in Jackson County, I do not speak for that organization. I speak only for myself. We are our own first responder. That's the harsh fact of life. How many seconds does it take for the police to get there? How many seconds did it take for the people to defend themselves in that church in Texas or in your own front room? How many seconds does it take for someone to cross that 8-foot front room and reach you? Firearms in the hands of well-trained women protect us. We are our own self-responders. We do need to have those laws in place that protect us, not have artificial red flag laws put in place by other jurisdictions. I encourage you to support our Second Amendment sanctuary as has happened in 10 other counties in the state of Michigan. And the reason we have it is because some organized people are out of control in pushing things that deny us due process of law. And that's the biggest problem, is the denial of due process of law. So I would urge you to support the sanctuary amendment because it's woman-friendly. Women are our own first responders, and firearms are the great equalizer. Thank you.
Hello, and thanks for allowing me to speak to you today. My name is Chris Brown. I'm from Liberty Township. I'm here today in support of the sanctuary resolution. If you'll bear with me, I have some numbers to put out, and I'll explain why they're important after. 1.5 million, 5 million, 15 million, and 30 million. These are conservative estimates of the genocides committed by Pol Pot in Cambodia, Joseph Stalin in the Soviet Union, Adolf Hitler in Nazi Germany, and Mao Zedong in Communist China. All these genocides were started with gun control, initially with registration and eventually with confiscation, or the inability to ever have owned them, leaving the citizens, or in that case subjects, defenseless against tyrannical government. The difference between us and the victims of the despotism previously mentioned is that we have a right to keep and bear arms, not granted, but guaranteed by our Constitution for the defense of our lives, our state, and our way of life. With today's political climate and the seemingly endless forfeiture of our rights, adopting this resolution is a small but very important step in the right direction, making the statement that one county at a time, one state at a time, we're working towards securing our liberties for ourselves and for our future generations. Our founders believed, and so do I, that we were endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And history shows us that without liberty, life with true happiness is unattainable. To some, this may have sounded extreme or unreasonable, but when FEMA suggests that we keep a certain amount of food and medical equipment just in case, and the fire department tells us to keep a fire extinguisher at home just in case, most of us listen and prepare accordingly. But when our founders saw fit to amend the Constitution to make sure that we were armed and ready just in case, for some reason we received that differently. Let's adopt this resolution and join with the other counties in our state that had the intestinal fortitude to stand and proudly say, "Don't tread on me." Thank you, and God bless.
I'm Jay Jankovich, Parma Township. Just like to start to say, we've talked about the Second Amendment, and let's talk about the 14th Amendment, which says that you cannot be deprived of your liberty, freedom, or property without due process of law. And that is precisely what red flag laws do. Michigan has laws in place through personal protection orders to protect battered women and people under threat that involve due process of law. Red flag laws that have been passed in other states grossly overstep the protections of the Fourth Amendment as well as the Second, which guarantees our right to keep and bear arms, but also the Michigan Constitution, which guarantees our right to keep and bear arms for both defense of ourselves and for the state. Now, it's been said that protection of constitutional rights is up to judges. It's absolutely not true. As you all know, you all took an oath to support and defend both the state and the federal Constitution. Therefore, you are duty-bound to defend our rights, both under the Second and the 14th Amendment and under the Michigan Constitution. That's why I'd like to see this body unanimously vote in support of this legislation in order to send a message to gun control advocates and to our governor that the people of the county of Jackson will not be bullied into laws that they do not want and overwhelmingly do not support. And anyone who does vote yes, they will be remembered come election time. Thank you.
Peter Blumleth. And I just want to say that those people talking about due process and those people talking about the separation of powers don't understand that the first step is when the legislature passes a law that you believe to be unconstitutional is to seek judicial review. The founders determined that they did not want a legislature running amok, passing laws that would violate the Constitution, so they created the judicial branch to weigh in on those issues. You are circumventing that.
Peter, please direct your comments to the Board of Commissioners, please.
You are circumventing that if you agree to this proposal. The first step is if a law is passed, say a red flag law that does go outside the boundaries of your constitutional right to bear and own arms, you should challenge it in court first. You could come here later with this resolution if the court doesn't support your position. But first, you have to acknowledge the separation of powers and the necessity for judicial review. Otherwise, you're turning the sheriff, and we have a commission member running for that position, you're turning the sheriff into a little, you worry about despotism. Well, that's an authoritarian figure who then determines what is and what is not constitutional.
Peter, talk to the board, please.
I believe that is a danger to our liberties. That is a danger. That's exactly what the Constitution was created to prevent.
Jesus loves you too.
It's a figment of your imagination.
Please contain yourself. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gary Schutte. It's a pleasure and an honor to be able to speak with you this evening. I wanted to introduce myself as a candidate for county sheriff and a resident, lifelong resident of Jackson County, as well as Hanover Township. I'm in support of this resolution, and I want to explain a little of the reason why. I spent 25 years as a police officer of the Jackson Police Department, 18 of which I was a detective, and most of which was dedicated to death investigation and violent crime. In the year 2001, I was assigned to a federal task force that specifically was fashioned for violent crime. We were extremely successful taking down some very bad people. We had a murder-free year in Jackson that year, and we decreased violent crime insurmountably. We did all that without infringing upon anyone's Second Amendment rights, without changing any laws. And it's really important in today's society that we look at that very carefully, because I think we're overkilling for something that we can control with what we have in front of us. And this amendment allows us to continue to operate in this way and to progress forward safely. I know we can do it. We've done it before. I was a part of that, and I can guarantee you we can do it again, and everybody will be safe. The way to do that is not to take guns away from people who are using them to protect themselves. And I think it's really important that this body recognizes that and passes this resolution to continue that here in Jackson County. Jackson County especially because we're seeing an increase in violent crimes and shootings. We don't want to take the guns away from law-abiding people. So I urge you to consider this vote very carefully. And I thank you for your time. Oh, and by the way, there's a lot of talk of the law. I happen to be an attorney now. And it is totally within your rights as legislators of this county to pass this resolution. And I urge you to do it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Dion Claiborne. I'm a member of the LGBTQ community of Jackson, Michigan. And last year I helped organize the Jackson Pride Week. We had actually a credible threat of violence against us. Somebody said to us, to a member of our community, that they would pick off people on the parade route. There are people in this room I can guarantee you hate me and would like to see me dead. We've had violence against the LGBTQ community historically for decades. And while people have a Second Amendment right to bear arms, I also have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And with rights come responsibilities. And we need to balance those rights. So those who want to bear arms can bear arms, but don't put those of us who don't want to bear arms at risk. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kim Swinar. I live in Jackson County, and I am part of the Jewish community here in Jackson. And being part of the I had initially had other things I was going to say when I came up here, when I came into the room, and then I had the very dismayed thing to see the Proudless boys, who are known white supremacists here. They threaten Jews, they threaten LGBTQ, they are a hate group, they are white supremacists. And
Please, gentlemen, please respect her while she talks. Thank you, gentlemen. Go ahead.
so I also have a CPL. I carry an arm. I believe in the right to bear arms. Our right to have weapons is protected by the Constitution. We should follow what the Constitution says and what the legislator says. Making up your own little regulations for a county is not following what the Constitution says. Allowing known white supremacists to go free and be able to terrorize people as they wish, not a great move. Having them here and cheer y'all on, ooh, it's even talking lower. Very dismayed. There were thousands and thousands of people killed in schools. Do you know who needs sanctuary? Kids need sanctuary. School children going to school being murdered, they need sanctuary. We need to beef up our protection of humans, not our protection of guns. Humans need sanctuary. Thank you.
Gentlemen, I'm asking you to please refrain.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Donna Guernsey, and I am here tonight because I am against the Jackson County Commissioners approving the Second Amendment Refuge County Resolution. This resolution appears to provide a mechanism to ignore future gun control legislation. The resolution will maintain the status quo and, I'm afraid, further doom Jackson County to be a more dangerous and deadly place to live. Sheriffs and county officials who support this action are demonstrating a lack of independent thinking and giving every appearance of a willingness to abuse power. I stand with the over 60 to 80% of gun owners who support the creation of sensible gun laws to help reduce gun violence in our communities. Thank you for your time.
My name is Dot Tatro. I've lived in the city of Jackson for 39 years, and I moved here from Massachusetts on the day that Ronald Reagan was shot, March 30th, 1981. Many people knew about that man's mental status. Many people knew about some of the things he was saying. There wasn't social media yet, but many people knew about what he was like and what he was threatening to do. We're teaching school kids, when you see something or hear something, say something. We're asking little children to do that. We say that some of these things could have prevented if someone spoke up. We're asking little children in our school systems to do that, but we can't ask that of ourselves. I'm really confused by people's fear about their guns being confiscated. I thought they were good guys with guns. So if you're a good guy with a gun, and maybe you can help someone out someday by helping protect them, I don't understand what their fear is if they're really just a good guy with a gun. In my professional world, I emailed all of you yesterday. I don't know if you received the email from me, but in my professional world, I have sat with women like Terry. I have sat with women that knew if they left, they would be shot and killed. They would be hunted down. I have sat with women as they planned an escape. I have sat with women who talk about what he says he's going to do, and we believe him. So we're not talking about good guys with guns. They are already protected by the Second Amendment. I am really confused what this hullabaloo is all about if these are all good people with guns. I don't understand. And it doesn't sound like it's conclusive about what legality you all have to make this decision. I've seen arguments on both sides. I don't know if data helps you, but from what I've been reading the last week or two, the counties and the cities that have this resolution, the suicide rates are higher. Does anybody care about that?
30 seconds, ma'am.
Okay, I'm all done. I'm just really confused by all of this upset in people that already have the right.
Nathaniel Mulvihill, Jackson County, Summit Township, previously city and previously Pleasant Lake. I don't think we should make our elected officials have to be constitutional scholars. I am a huge supporter of the Second Amendment. I have guns in my home, have for most of my life, expect to for the rest of my life. But I also don't expect to be prosecuted for domestic violence. And if a law is put on the books that says that if you're convicted twice of domestic violence and you shouldn't own guns anymore because you're a danger to your family, well, then you're not a good guy with a gun anymore. You're convicted of domestic violence. And I don't think it's the sheriff's job to make constitutional arguments. It's the sheriff's job certainly to make constitutional arguments if he's in a court of law, but we shouldn't be asking him to do that as part of his job. That's not what the sheriff's elected to do. That's not in his job description. So, yeah, huge supporter of the Second Amendment, but we're asking the sheriff to do things way above his pay grade. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, thank you. I'm Janet Somalinog from Brooklyn.
I was just wondering how fast this resolution has come before you and if you've done your due diligence and your research. This is not a resolution that stands in a vacuum. It has repercussions that permeate through so many areas of our life. Second Amendment states, I'm familiar with Idaho, they have had a similar, it's not called a sanctuary state, but they're big on guns, and they have protected the gun rights since like 2006. They had a similar resolution. And I just did a quick glance through some information, and the increase of gun violence on the national level since 2006 sort of went at a grade like this, and Idaho's was more like this. And the fact that there might be more guns proliferated, have you done the due diligence or an impact study or risk assessment on areas in this county, such as schools? Don't we have 16 school districts in Jackson County, and have you contacted any one of them, to the staff and the students, and figured out what is going to be happening with them? And what about the economy? What kind of impact or influence is going to permeate throughout the state in bringing money into Jackson County? Insurance cost. Is there going to be an impact? Because you know the insurance companies are going to get in on this. If there's more risk, they're going to raise your costs. Future legal cost and litigation that may stem from this resolution. And then again, the softer side, the cultural and the societal impact. If you've done your due diligence, you would have maybe thought of, if a shooting does occur...
30 seconds, ma'am.
The Second Amendment is a great right, and it comes with great responsibility. Please do your due diligence. Ask us citizens to sit on a committee and start working together. I'd rather have Jackson known for collaboration rather than some top-down decision. Thank you.
Sarah McAdam, I live in the city of Jackson. I want to make 2 points. One is people have brought up the Second Amendment, and the one thing I haven't heard is the Second Amendment is your basic right. And I know I have a copy of the Constitution, and it says you have the right to bear arms in order to form a militia. And the reason our forefathers put that in there is because the American Revolution was started by the militia to revolt against the government. We live in a different society nowadays. And the reason people are putting up wanting to worry about guns is because of mass shootings that are going on. Jackson doesn't need a Parkland, a Columbine, or any other kind of mass shooting. You know, I've been working in the schools for almost 7 years. And when I was a kid and I graduated from high school in '94, we had tornado drills and fire drills. Nowadays we have tornado drills, fire drills, and lockdown drills. Those lockdown drills happen so the staff and the contract employees, and I'm a contract, and the kids know where to go in case there's a mass shooting. Okay? And I want to add to what Kim said, we need to be worried about our kids. You know, I don't have to worry about, you know, myself or the kids I work with getting shot. And I have no problem. I know plenty of people, my friends and family, that own guns. I was talking to customers the other day who went to a gun show. And if people want to protect themselves or go hunting or go to a gun show, but we need to make sure that there's law-abiding citizens owning guns, and we need to make sure we don't have people that do mass shootings that are mentally ill out creating, you know, hurting people in our community. Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Good evening. I'm sure you all recognize me. My name is Val Toops. I've come here quite often over the years. I have been your Human Relations Commissioner, ex officio, parliamentarian, and secretary of that commission. And I have also run for state senate. And I'm here to talk to you tonight about a decision that you are going to have to make at some point in time. Obviously, you take the Second Amendment very seriously and our constitutional rights, because you would not be sitting up here as a commission if you did not. We have a very serious problem here in Jackson. We are divided. We are divided as a community over our constitutional rights. These are the guarantees that were given to us by our forefathers, and I do not believe I would have to stand here and educate any one of you on those rights. Tonight, you are going to make a decision where you are willfully, as a body, going to create a preemptive situation in the event of legislation you may, future possibly, disagree with. We have a community at risk at this very moment. We have people who are discharging firearms within the city limit, within the county, which is possibly their right to do in the county, but we have ordinances in the city. We have laws that need to be enforced. We have to tweak some existing laws, that's a good thing. But I don't believe that you should take it upon yourselves to add an extra layer onto what our constitutional rights are here at this time in Jackson County. If you feel that you have failed so miserably in your quest as constitutional officers on this commission, and you have sat here for numerous years without accomplishing anything towards alleviating the problem we now face here in our county and city. If that's you that I'm talking to, be ready, because I'm telling you right now, I love our Constitution, I will defend it, and everyone's right here in this room and in this county, state, and nation.
30 seconds, ma'am.
But know this, I will not, as a sheriff of Jackson County, take away anyone's Second Amendment right, but you know right now, if you are in possession of an article of which you are not registered to have, if I become sheriff, I will disarm you. And I will disarm anyone in Jackson County as sheriff who possesses or intends to use those articles
Your time's up, ma'am.
against any citizen. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Mike Anastasiadis. And let me start by saying I'm in support of the sanctuary county. And I'll tell you the one main reason why I am, and that's because of the red flag logs that are floating around. And I'm going to start by telling you a story that I hear a lot about, the whole men abusing women. And I feel for these women, I really do. But over 20-some years ago, I had a wife that I hired a private investigator to catch cheating on me with pictures and bugging my phone and whatnot. And I kicked her out. I filed for divorce. And the woman decided she was going to tell the courts that I threatened her with my firearms. With a red flag law, that I would get a knock on my door by the sheriff's department or a law enforcement agency of some sort coming to take my weapons away from me without due process. Okay? That is why I'm against it. I understand that women are being assaulted. I understand that women are scared. But in the society that we live in today, courts side with women 99% of the time. I am a good man. I am a law-abiding citizen that I'm married to a woman for 20 years now, been with her for 22 years. And I have got my guns. It's on me now. I've got weapons at the house and a 13-year-old daughter. My weapons have never once stood up and killed anybody. Okay, I will not stand by and let anybody take my weapons unconstitutionally. I am in support of this. I won't even take up the rest of the 3 minutes. That's all I needed to say. Thank you.
One more time, my name is John Lay. I'm here in support of the sanctuary resolution. Red flag laws are a good way, an easy excuse for someone to make an accusation. We've heard several stories of that tonight, to take somebody's due process away or to take somebody's firearms away without due process. And then later they've got to go argue to exercise their rights and get that back. I can give you two really good examples of that. One of them just happened in this room earlier tonight. A woman called our group a group of racists. I'm part Jewish. My friend over there is Jewish. My friend over there is African American. We're a pretty poor racist group, if that's what we make up. But without any due process at all, that's how we were labeled. Guys, think about this very carefully before you vote against it. Passing a resolution to guarantee people's Second Amendment right is the only thing you can do constitutionally. Allowing red flag laws to take place here and for people to have their rights taken away without due process is absolutely unconstitutional. Thank you for your time.
My name's Adam Hastings. I live in Rives Junction, Michigan. When I first moved up here 4.5 years ago, I talked to the local state trooper. He said the response time to where I live is roughly 30 minutes. That's what he told me. I'm an over-the-road truck driver. I am gone for weeks. Not days, not a couple of days, weeks. My wife lives at home by herself. We have 2 dogs, a miniature horse, goat, chickens. We live on a farm. I can tell you right now, I am scared to death that somebody, I hear all these people say, well, yeah, the men abusing women and all that. I understand that, but my wife has a right to protect herself. And when I hear about government, and I'm talking about Virginia, sit there and they pass resolutions to make it illegal for you to go to self-defense classes to protect yourself, that concerns me. What about our rights? I encourage y'all to please think about this and please pass this. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Davita Quinn, and I am speaking out in opposition to this resolution. This is not the place to determine what laws are constitution. We already have places. They've already been established. We don't need a resolution for this county. Do you know how many gun violence deaths we have in this county? We don't want to take away your guns.
Davita, please face this. Davita.
Lock them up.
Davita, I'm going to call you out of order and turn your microphone off. Ma'am?
Or shoot someone else. So that you don't shoot your wife or take out your whole family with the weapons.
Davita, I'm asking you to speak to the Board of Commissioners.
I'm facing
No, you're not, ma'am. You were talking to the room behind you. I'm asking you to speak to us.
Oh, yeah, I was a minute ago. I was.
And if you can't direct your comments to the county commission, I'm going to turn the microphone off and ask you to be seated.
Okay, that's fine. I'll say it again. The weapons, we need them to be locked up so that they're not used to shoot other people. We find that the violence with the guns that's in the home of all gun owners, they're used in the homes to commit suicide. They're used in the homes to commit murders among their families. The guns need to be put down and the guns need to be locked up. We are lobbying next week on the 25th. Moms demand action against gun violence and domestic abuse with people who carry arms and who use them to hurt and kill other people. We would love to have, and we invite you all to come and join us and march with us in Lansing. We just want to protect our children. We want to prevent abuse with our women. Advocacy Day 2020, we're asking you to stand with us. We want to make it clear that gun violence prevention is a priority. We are moms, and we won't be ignored. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep standing up.
30 seconds,
We're going to
ma'am.
keep shouting. Pardon?
You have 30 seconds.
Okay. Thank you. Typically, American gun death rate is 11 times that of any other countries. At least 58% of American adults or someone that care for other people have personally experienced gun violence in their lifetime. Why? Why so much gun violence in the United
Your
States?
time's used up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Ricky Adams. I live right here in Jackson. I come because I support our Second Amendment. I have a story. I come home one day, we're talking about protecting children, protecting families, protecting wives. I come home, my street's blocked out for police. Cops are everywhere, driveways, corners. I don't know what's going on. I pull into my driveway. Find out there's a man that robbed a local store, box cutter. He's on the loose. He's running around my neighborhood. I go, and then my neighbor tells me, I seen a man in your backyard. He was down here, he was over here, he was running around, he was looking for a place to hide. I go in my home, the only thing at home is my 15-year-old teenage daughter, my 2 grandchildren, and my elderly 74-year-old mother-in-law. I go in, I ask my daughter, has anybody been in here? No. My basement door, is my basement door locked? She says, no, it wasn't locked. I proceed to take my firearm as a law-abiding citizen to protect my property, my wife, my daughter, my family. Go down in my basement. I start going room to room, making sure my family's safe, there's nobody there. I come to the last room in my basement. I have my gun in my hand. Next thing I know, this door opens. Worst feeling that you could have is to sit there and your door opens and you have no idea what's on the other side of that door, what's coming out of that room. I have my firearm up. My finger's not on the trigger. It's on the side. I still practice safety, but still at the same time, the intruder knows I am armed, I have what I need. He's armed with a box cutter. What do? I don't shoot him. I don't kill him because as a law-abiding citizen with my firearm, that's not my intent. My intent's not to kill or anything like that. My intent is to protect. I told the gentleman, get face down on the floor in my basement right where you stand, because if you come at me, I will shoot you. I will not hesitate. I don't want to, lay down. The gentleman laid down on the floor. Sent my daughter outside after the cops because they're still everywhere outside looking for him. But the whole time he's in my home
30 seconds,
with my family. So, and when I went to court, the judge on the stand before I got off the stand thanked me for not shooting this man because I had every legal right to shoot him. But that, like I said, law-abiding citizen, not our intent to kill. Our intent is to protect. And we need our Second Amendment sanctuary to protect ourselves, our family, and our rights. Thank you.
My name is Jack Elrod, and I live in Liberty Township. I just wanted to say about the lady that was talking about the militia and the people in the Second Amendment, but the founders were very smart. They put commas in. It says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the state, comma. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I come today as a person that has a CPL. I had a little story. I had a neighbor, and they accused me of shooting at the house. It was my house, but they were living there. And so I had the personal protection order put against me. I was guilty. I had to prove my innocence. I lost my CPL, but I got it back when I went before Judge McBain. But I'm just saying, there are laws that I don't really care for. I think the lady next door should have just dialed 911, had an officer come out, made a decision. But no, but I'll leave that go. But the First Amendment, what I was going to talk about, the lady, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the founders were brilliant on what they come up with in our Constitution. And the infringing, if you look in Webster's dictionary, it's just break an agreement to encroach. And I just ask you people here tonight to pass this ruling, and we'll be better off for it. And so I guess I'll just turn my head around, and thank you for listening.
My name is Randy Herrick. I live in Parma Township. I'm in favor of the Constitution. The Constitution is one of the best documents that's ever been written to govern a country. It's 7,800 words long. Second Amendment is 27 of those words. This resolution throws out approximately 4,000 of those words. The Constitution was written with checks and balances in it. It is not your job to determine what is constitutional and what is not constitutional. That is the job of the Supreme Court. At federal level, that means there are 9 people who are tasked with making that decision. Your job is to support and defend this country, this state, and this Constitution, and the laws as they are written. We've heard some stuff on the red flag laws. People specifically talked about the gentleman that shot up the church or tried to shoot up the church in Texas. He was a known problem. The reason he died or only killed one person is because they were already watching him and they had their gun out. He was a known problem. If they had a red flag law, he wouldn't have had his damn shotgun, and nobody would have died, including him. Would eliminating the red flag laws or not having the red flag laws, there's cost 2 lives because he still had his gun. We talk about women and domestic violence. If a woman lives in a house with a domestic abuser, she is 500% more likely to die if they have a gun in the house than if they don't. Do you know that 22 veterans commit suicide every day? 22 veterans. Do you know how many attempted? It's over 100 attempt suicide every day. So there's a 20% success rate. Do you know how many that use guns succeed? 95% of veterans that attempt suicide with guns. Kind of funny, they know how to use guns. You want to do something? Get the veterans the health care that they need from VA. Get them the mental health help they need.
30 seconds, sir.
Talk about mass shootings. 32% of the people that have been involved in a homicide where there were more than one victim had already had contact with law enforcement and probably should have had their weapons taken away from them based on red flag laws. So not enforcing red flag laws is costing us a hell of a lot of lives. Thank you.
Please refrain.
My name is Clyde McKinnon. I live in Leone Township. I have a question to ask about these red flag gun laws. As it is right now, pretty much anywhere in the United States, if you are a cannabis patient, caregiver, you're not allowed to own a handgun. And if you are automatically labeled a drug dealer. when is this going to stop? You can have alcohol, be drunk all the time, you can do opiates, you can be on depressants. I mean, at some point, we have to start drawing a line. If this goes through, does this mean that if you are a cannabis patient or a caregiver, you can now be able to have a gun and not have to worry about being convicted or labeled as a drug dealer because of that fact? I think some more marinating needs to go on in people's heads.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Mary Kay Hastings. I'm from Rives Junction. What they're talking about, these women being physically and mentally abused, I know for a fact because I've got the scars all over my body. But these women are also going to have to raise up and realize they need to take care of themselves. They've got to be there for themselves. And learning how to take care of themselves and protect themselves is the number one thing they've got to learn. And it's hard. It's very hard to stand up to somebody that's holding a knife at your throat. It's very hard to standing up to somebody who's got a gun at your head. I know this because I was married to it for 20 years. I left him because he threw my 7-year-old daughter across the living room and broke her arm. But these people that's also committing suicide, I know a lot of little girls that's committed suicide, but they don't commit suicide just by guns. They commit suicide by drugs. They commit suicide by taking knives to the wrist. We really need this a Second Amendment. These children need their traditions still alive. I cannot see y'all putting down children because they want to learn how to protect themselves. They want to learn how to deer hunt. We need to keep our traditions alive in our families. And we really need to help these women to stand up for themselves too. Thank you.
My name is Krista Barnheiser of Tompkins Township. I live in Tompkins with my 2 teenage daughters and a husband who works a 60-hour week and travels for over 2 months out of every year. So that makes me the only person responsible for the safety of my daughters, my livestock, and myself while he's gone. Strike that. I'm asking you to pass this resolution for 2A Sanctuary County, not because there's nothing in it that requires you to determine the constitutionality of any gun law. And that seems to be a concern that a lot of people have. There's nothing in that resolution that's going to change any current laws, even though some of them need to be changed. There's nothing in there that's going to change the way the current laws are enforced. The one thing that this resolution will do, and the one thing that I want to see it do, and it's why I want you to pass it, is that it will send a message to the Michigan State Legislature that they need to stop this penchant they've developed for throwing unconstitutional bills out like red flag laws that are frankly so poorly designed that they're an invitation to be abused, and like assault weapons bills where the definition of assault is, ooh, well, the rifle's plastic and it's black, therefore it's scary. That's the message I want to see sent. I want the legislature to know that this is the 13th county in the state that is tired, sick and tired of their unconstitutional laws and the attempts that they make to pass them. That's the only thing this resolution is going to do, and it is the most important thing. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Berkmeyer. I'm the grandson of Mexican immigrants who came to this country because they wanted a better life for themselves and their family. I am also the grandson of Polish immigrants. Both my grandfathers, I'm also the grandson of Polish immigrants who came to this country to escape both religious and cultural encroachment by the Bolsheviks. Both my grandfathers fought in the Second World War as well as the Korean War. They fought both the communists as well as the fascists. They fought in these wars because they believed in something bigger than themselves. This country is something special. We have something that no other country on this planet has, and that is the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, quite possibly the two greatest documents ever devised by man. I am a lawful gun owner. As we saw in Virginia a few weeks ago, tens of thousands of Americans made their voices heard during the Virginia Lobby Day. Since last November's election, the Democrats in Virginia have introduced over 8 new anti-gun bills. If those bills passed, millions of Virginians would be turned into felons overnight. Many of the speakers before me tell me that I have nothing to worry about so long as I'm a good guy. The legislature has the ability to make me a felon overnight for owning something that I've owned for years, as well as my grandfathers who carried them in wars to fight both fascists and communists. Why would I trust them for a speedy trial and appeal process to the courts when the Supreme Court hasn't even taken up a substantial Second Amendment case in years? As I mentioned earlier in my statement, both my grandparents came from countries where the Second Amendment did not exist. In Mexico, the drug war rages on while citizens are left defenseless by Mexican gun control laws. In Poland, millions of Jews, political dissidents, LGBTQ individuals, and other undesirables were systematically exterminated. Guns are not just a right preserved for straight white men. They are women's rights, black rights, and LGBTQ rights. We are all Americans, and we are all guaranteed the rights that our Creator provided us with. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment?
Hi, my name's Todd Klima. I live in Jackson. I hear people up here saying the law, the law, the law, the courts, the courts, the courts. You can take out your phone, which is a walking library. You can type in Library of Congress. It has every Supreme Court case ruled on. In 1800, they ruled on the most important Supreme Court case in the United States. It's called Marbury versus Madison. And it defined the separations of powers in the state. And it set forth judicial review. And in that, they wrote that any law passed that is in conflict of the Constitution of the United States is null and void of law, and as a citizen, I have no duty to obey it. When you were all elected, you raised your right hand and you swore and took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, so help you God. You don't get to not defend that because somebody's family member chose to end their life with a gun, which is very unfortunate. They chose a means to get rid of the social issue they had, not a gun issue. Our founding fathers were so adamant, and when you swore that oath of office, that you be held accountable. You can look on that same phone at the Library of Congress. Title 18 of the United States says that in front of 2 or more witnesses, if you fail to timely defend your oath and honor the Constitution and protect it from all illegal laws, you have committed felony treason, which is punishable by death or 5 years imprisonment and not less than $10,000. I feel bad for people that have had loved ones shot by people with guns. It's a social issue, and you have to address that and not just ban the guns. But either way, you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. And if you do not do that by passing...
30 seconds, please, sir.
By passing a resolution when you know state officials are trying to not only impede on my Second, Fourth, and even the 14th Amendment, you're in violation of that. Our first defense as citizens starts with local community action. Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Zastroy from Tompkins Township. I'd like to thank you for listening to all this tonight. Been talking about the Supreme Court a lot. They've handed down a lot of bad decisions for us, including the Dred Scott case in 1800s. And the federal government, there's checks and balances, but when they reach levels of evil, when they're going against people's rights, whoever it is, in the 1800s it was the slaves, and they needed to be protected. And some of them found refuge here in Michigan. We defied the federal government. We said, we're not honoring your fugitive slave law. We're going to protect the fugitives that come to us. That was right. We had to do that before God. The Second Amendment doesn't grant us our rights to bear arms. It recognizes them because they're from God. We have them. We have the right to liberty. Encourage you to interpose, to stand between unlawful and tyrannical laws and judges and protect us, help us. Stand between unlawful decisions, unlawful laws. We're not asking you to do anything crazy, just to recognize and to put forth a resolution that you're going to honor the law. Protect us no matter what the Supreme Court or the federal government or the state government does. Thank you for your time.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment?
My name's Aaron. I'm from Jackson County, up in Blackman Township. I'm a little bit, I'm totally for the Second Amendment. But I do want to say on the other side of the that line, it's a mental health issue when it comes to guns. And there's a clear line when you can tell someone's a paranoid schizophrenic. I'm going to give an example of back when I was a teenager. My stepfather's brother thought someone was out behind the house trying to kill him. My stepdad went over there, and when he came to the door to knock on it, my stepfather's brother shot through the door, and it went through the door hinge and grazed his eye and almost killed him. Long story short, 20 years later, the perpetrator, my stepdad's brother, didn't have his parents to give him his meds, so he ended up killing his wife and lived with her body for 3 days and then killed himself. So that's a whole other can of worms, but I don't think taking people's guns away is going to help any. Dave gave me my first felony 20 years ago and took my gun away, but I'll tell you what, I learned to live without a gun, but that's because I've had the protection of a really good friend that if I needed him, I could call him, and he's been a responsible gun owner, and if I was ever in a jam, I could call him without having to waste the police's time. So there's ways around this, and there's ways to work through it. You guys just got to find that balance. But I am for this to get passed tonight, so thank you.
How you doing? Thanks for hearing me out.
Your name, please?
Martin.
Last name?
Lebre.
Go ahead.
Okay. The first thing I want to say is in response to a woman who was up here earlier who said that if a person was a good guy with a gun, then what we have to worry about. Well, the reason all these people in here, whoever may be gun owners, are here because they're good men and women with guns. Bad guys and girls or bad men and women with guns don't care about that law. That's why they're not in this room right now. Second, got two more short points to make. Second is, I'm not a native of Michigan. I grew up in Chicago, the west side of Chicago, most gang-infested city you can think of, with so much gun control that's coming out of the sewers. And I've lost a lot of friends to gun violence. And the one thing that a lot of the people I lived around said, they didn't say, we need less guns. They said, I wish I had one so I can come to the defense of my loved one, my friend. And third is, when I'm supposed to be a statistic, okay? I'm black, and I'm a gun owner, and I'm supposed to be in jail or dead or anything like that. But the thing is responsible gun ownership. I've been pulled over in Bath, and I've had an AR-15, I've had a pistol. It's about how you carry yourself. When they pulled me over, I followed all laws, did everything they said. They ran the numbers, everything was legal, and we had a nice conversation about firearms after. So this isn't about the people who abide by the law, because responsible gun ownership is a right and a privilege as well. And you have to practice that liberty. It comes with responsibility. But to hold everyone accountable under someone can accuse someone of being suicidal and then they can have their guns taken away, that's just not right. And the reason people say, oh, we're paranoid, no one's coming to take your guns. The reason why a lot of the draconian laws haven't been passed in this country is because we do have the firearms. The Second Amendment keeps all those things in check. That's why. This law, this red flag laws, it leaves us open to too many abuses down the line. Not saying you all are going to do it, but those who replace you may have a different idea.
30 seconds, sir.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
My name is Jim Hedges. I am a resident of Summit Township, and I want to commend everyone who has sat here and listened tonight and has struggled with your consciences. I want to commend everyone in the room who have done their best to prepare their reasoning behind supporting or not supporting a Second Amendment sanctuary ruling here in Jackson County, and the courage to speak that's given, and also the freedom by the First Amendment. I do want to say that I feel like I'm in a church service here. I hear a lot of amening going on. And I'd like to speak specifically to the gentleman who said that bearing arms is a God-given right. I haven't said what I do.
Pastor, I have to ask that you speak to the board, please. Thank you, Jim.
I am the pastor of the First Presbyterian Church, and as far as I know in our Christian tradition, I remember someone once saying that those who live by the sword shall perish by the sword.
Hey, please.
And I think when you wield that kind of instrument, whether it's a knife, a sword, or a weapon, you better know what you're doing. And the issue that I have with the sanctuary law is that folks think they know what they're doing, but hardly any of them are trained as peace officers or police officers or law officers, and that scares me. And so that's why I speak against the Second Amendment sanctuary resolution. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment?
Can you speak more than once?
No, sir. There's a second time to speak at the end of the meeting. Any other public comment? Public comment is now closed. We have no special meetings or standing committees this evening. At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the January 21st. Who made the motion, please? And the support was Corey?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any corrections? Deletions? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Duly carried. We've arrived at the consent agenda. Entertain a motion for the consent agenda? So moved. I have a motion in support. Items for removal. Commissioner Elwell.
Item 10A, Mr. Chair.
Item 10A, Department of Agents Senior Millage Ballot Proposal Request will move to item 14B. Any other items from the consent agenda? Madam Clerk, could you post the vote?
I'm sorry, Mr.
Tony Beers moved, Corey Kennedy supported. Yes, ma'am. What's that?
Unanimous.
Thank you. Passed 8-0. Standing Committees, Public Safety and Transportation, chaired by Vice Chairman David Elwell. Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have appointments for tonight is the only item. First committee up is the Community Corrections Advisory Board. There are 2 vacant seats. We had 1 applicant and 1 recommendation from committee, being John Hayes.
Is there any nominations from the floor? I need a support to the motion to concur.
Support.
I have a support. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Elwell.
Region 2 Planning Commission is another committee with a vacant seat. There were no applicants and no recommendation from committee.
Any nominations from the floor? Hearing nor seeing none, that will carry forward to the March meeting. Commissioner Elwell.
And lastly, the Jackson Area Transportation Authority, there's 1 open seat currently held by Phil Moylanen. He was the applicant and is also the recommendation from committee.
Any nominations from the floor? I need a support to concur. Support. We have a motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Elwell.
That's all I had to report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Standing Committee Human Services. In the absence of the chair, Daniel Mahoney, you are vice chair. Could you please? Thank you, sir.
Under Human Services, thank you, Mr. Chair. Looks like we have no business tonight. Is that correct? I don't see any
You have
comments.
item 14B, which is a Health Department
Oh,
Senior
excuse me,
Millage
I'm
Ballot.
sorry. Okay, so item B?
Please, sir. We need, do you move?
Yes.
Thank you. Do I have a support?
I'll support it and I have a
Thank
comment.
you. I was going to let the administrator explain what this is first.
Okay.
Administrator Controller Michael Overton.
Thank you. This is a recommendation to ask the voters to consider a ballot measure for financing and funding the seniors. The current millage will expire next year, and we need to ask for that.
Commissioner Elwell, do you have a comment?
I do, Mr. Chair. I ask that it be moved to off the consent agenda to make it clear we're not actually voting to put the millage request out tonight. It's to forward the action, and voting on it will come at another meeting on whether it'll be August or November. Thank you.
Correct. What the Administrator Controller's Office will do for the audience is they will take the next 30 days to produce a document that shows how the millage will be generated approximately over the next 10 years and how the money then would be spent for the Department on Aging. So that way the documentation would become available. They would then contact legal counsel and the legal counsel then would return the correct ballot language, and it would move through the March committee process. So it will appear 2 more times before this body before the final ballot language is approved and voted on. Any commissioner comments or questions? So everyone understands we're going to be voting to move this process forward for the Administrator Controller's Office to return with the language.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
So we'll have the opportunity to suggest other mills if we don't agree with the proposed one?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? Those opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Mahoney, do you have any other items to come before the board?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the business of the Human Services Committee.
Thank you very much, Vice Chairman Mahoney. Standing Committees, General Government. He just skipped over appointments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 3 items of business tonight. The first up is appointments. We have the Jackson County Land Bank Authority, a city representative. This is chosen by the city. Their term expires in 2020. Current members Andrew Fraunfelker. The city requested we appoint Kelsey Heck. The committee recommended Kelsey Heck.
Is there a motion to concur? There's a motion and support on the floor to concur with Kelsey Heck, City Councilperson, being the recommended person to the Land Bank Authority. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay. We didn't have an opportunity to...
There's no chance to, sir.
Okay, thank you.
This person is,
I got it.
all we do is do a concurrence with who their recommendation is. Do you want to stay a nay, sir, or would you like to become a...
I do want to stay a nay.
Thank you.
Second appointment, Mr. Chair, will be the County Board of Canvassers for the Republican Party. The term expires 10/21. Current member was Avis Campbell, who is deceased. An applicant was Nicholas Fenn. Committee recommended Nicholas Fenn.
Madam Clerk, could you clarify that this is an appointment from their recommendation? Is that correct? Then we concur. Okay. So everyone understands that there can't be a nomination again from the floor. So we have a motion and support. Any further questions? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Duly carried. Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Second item.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
Support.
Okay, Commissioner Elwell.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's the item C that I want to address.
Okay. Is there any further questions on this item? Did all commissioners receive the questions that they had on it through the Administrator Controller's Office? Mr. Mahoney?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Just a quick question on item 4.3, under this one, under policy 4040. I'm still having some trouble with this one. So I do think the change was a good change from what we had. However, I'd still like to see the communications and petitions to be passed out to the rest of the board, not just to the chairperson of the board. Under the current way it's written, all communications and petitions presented at a meeting by the general public shall be given to the chairperson, period. If we could include given to the chairperson and distribute it to the rest of the commissioners, I would be in favor for this. If we can't make that amendment, then I will be voting no on this, and at this point, I would move for that amendment to be made.
I'll support that.
We have a motion and support for an amendment to this, to add language to this to not only be received by the chair, but also be passed out. Now, to make commissioners aware, and I realize that we're concerned with the office and the seat, not the person sitting in it. At this time, as you notice this evening, you have everything in front of you. You received edible tables, county policies, other items. I made sure they were distributed, and we also passed out an item that was given to us under communications and petitions, was passed out to all commissioners. So we have a motion, and we have an amendment at this time to that motion. I have a motion and support. We'll be voting on the amendment first, and then the initiative. Commissioner Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the concept that Daniel's talking about, and that's what I've complained about for a couple of meetings, but I, again, trust that how it's been tweaked will work for us. We get everything handed out. You know, my issue has been too much being buried in minutes that I don't think belong there, and I again, looked through everything I got tonight. I think Mr. Bormuth handed us something, or handed you something that got passed out, which I read, and I appreciate the ability to do that, but I trust that'll happen without having to bury it in the policy personally.
Any other comments? Commissioner Bear?
Current chairman, I like the way you do that. You do personally hand out pass the literature on. The next chairperson may not choose to do that. Do we want to leave it the way it's written? It's kind of written up to the chairperson's discretion. Do we want to change it so that it says you have to, or the next chairperson, if he has a different opinion, will be required to?
Corey?
I don't have much to add. I tend to concur with Tony.
Okay, so if everyone agrees with that, then we'll have a vote. And if 5 of us completely agree with it, it'll be added, and we'll continue forward with this policy then as amended. Want to post the vote, please, on the amendment? Or do you want to call? Yes, you may.
Commissioner Bear? Commissioner Walls? Yes. Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Duckham?
Yes.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Elwell?
Yes.
Chairman Shotwell?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Now we're on to the full policy 4040 as amended. I have a motion. Do I have support? Support. Okay, thank you. So it's, yes, you may. We're going to post the vote. I'm a yes. Where it went. Thank you. Passed unanimously. Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Third and final item is a policy update of 3340.
Are you making a motion?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion. Do I have support? Support. We have a motion and support. Vice Chairman Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is another policy that I had a concern with over a couple of meetings, and I tried to persuade my fellow commissioners that other language need to be inserted, which I provided each commissioner with a copy of my highlighted suggestion. I gave it to the clerk as well, and I'll read it. But first, I'll say what my concern is, and that is that after we've hired an employee, any employee, I think we have an obligation to know whether or not they have the legal right to drive, because I don't want to put an employee in a position of having them run an errand, whether it's in their own car or a county car, and have something happen that we get sued for. We see way too many lawsuits. And my language that I've suggested is simply that after they've been hired, don't use that to make a hiring decision, but then we check their driving status. If they're good, fine. If they're not good, then we just know that they can't drive while they're on county business. And we also put it back in their lap to notify their department head if their driving status changes. I think it's just common sense government. And therefore, I offer the amendment that's highlighted on the document that everybody's been provided that gives that language.
Do we have support for the amendment?
Support.
Any other commissioner comments? So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to vote on the amendment, adding the yellow highlighted to the policy. Administrator Controller.
If I may, it's, if the board is inclined to accept this, that second sentence, I think, is probably not necessary.
Mr. Chairman, I'm willing to accept deleting that part out. That truly was meant to better articulate my position on it, and I'm okay with leaving that second sentence out.
So amended?
Friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment? Okay.
Second sentence struck.
Please read the second sentence that's being deleted.
Striking the sentence, "This will help ensure that the county will not," in parentheses, "inadvertently have unlicensed employees driving on behalf of the county," period. Taking that sentence out. That is the intent of it, but it does not need to be in the policy.
Further questions to the amendment? Call. Madam Clerk, would you call?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Walls? Yes. Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Duckham?
Yes.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Elwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Bear?
Yes.
Chairman Shotwell?
Yes. Okay, now we're on to the full policy, 3340. We have a motion from Commissioner Duckham and support from Commissioner Walls. Are there any comments to the amended motion? Madam Clerk, could you post the vote?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Unanimous.
Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all for the General Government Committee tonight.
Thank you, sir. We have no unfinished business to come before the board. We've arrived at 17, new business. 17A, the Second Amendment resolution.
So moved.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Elwell, supported by Commissioner Duckham. Any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Elwell, then Commissioner Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I appreciate the public showing up tonight to give us their positions on it, both sides of it. I've just got three main things to say, or four really. I think most people recognize that taking guns away from law-abiding citizens doesn't make anyone safer. I also think this resolution sends a message to those that are in a position to take our rights away that that is not what we want. And that's what our state legislature could do. Third issue is that one look to Virginia tells us the importance of this resolution and the message it sends to those officials that could take away those rights. And in our case, we're sending that message ahead of time instead of after the fact, as happened in Virginia. And lastly, we've used the word sanctuary here tonight, but the resolution that was presented to us a month ago is pretty much verbatim for what we have, with the exception of one word. We changed sanctuary to refuge. I think there's a negative connotation or negative stigma attached to sanctuary, and I think refuge is a better word. I strongly support the resolution and encourage my fellow commissioners to vote yes on it.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Second Amendment was ratified to the Constitution in 1791. At that time, the most popular weapon being used was a musket, which had a one-round magazine and a capacity that fired 3 effective rounds if you were really, really good at shooting. Today, the AR-15 fires 400 rounds per minute.
Is there,
Mr. Chairman?
Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's calm down. Commissioner Mahoney, please continue.
I can wait. I can wait. So right now, there's 17 states, or 34% of our country, that has passed some form of red flag laws. So So I do think that the concern of our citizens is a real concern. I don't think that people are here just because they didn't have anything else to do on this lovely, cold Tuesday night. The Second Amendment also states that you have the right to bear arms, and that right shall not be infringed upon. Infringed is defined as encroachment. Encroachment means to move forward on something that you're not supposed to. I've got a lot of different comments to make here, so bear with me. Someone said that there's that if we pass
Mr.
this...
Mahoney, if I may, sir, while your opinion is very important, I'm asking at this time, do you have an amendment to this resolution?
Yeah, I do. I'm getting there. Can I finish my comment, or are you cutting me off now?
I'm not cutting you off, sir. I'm following the rules here.
It has not even been 3 minutes that our public get, Mr. Chair, and I would appreciate it if I was given my proper time.
Mr. Mahoney, if you have an issue with me, please take it with the board. You can call a point of order, sir.
But point of order.
Or you can, okay? I have a commissioner's call a point of order. Is there support? We have support. Those in favor of the point of order, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You cannot speak to the point of order, sir. The point of order is by Commissioner Mahoney on behalf of himself, that he would like to give his opinion, not state an amendment. Okay? He's allowed to give his opinion under commissioner comments. Commissioner Mahoney, if you'd like to give an amendment, you may do that. You cannot editorialize at this time.
I guess I just need clarification on this point of order.
Yes, sir?
That wasn't finished voted on.
You voted yes on the point of order. Commissioner Darius voted yes. The rest of the commissioners voted no.
Excuse me.
When? I don't ever recall you.
I would be a yes vote. I feel he can speak what he needs to speak.
Okay? Do I have any other no votes? Any that would like to change? Hearing none, that's 3 to 6. 5, excuse me. So you may make your amendment if you'd like to, sir. You can't editorialize at this time.
Thank you. Okay, so my only issue with this resolution is the second resolved. It is further resolved that the board affirms its support of the Jackson County Sheriff and the Jackson County Prosecuting Attorney in the exercise of their sound discretion. We just talked about discretion, just like discretion was used to cut me off, not to enforce against any citizen.
Is that an amendment?
Excuse me.
You would like that deleted?
Excuse me. Yes, I would like that taken out.
Is there support for the amendment? We have a motion and support to the amendment. Is there any speaking to the amendment? The amendment is that it is further resolved that this board affirms its support for the Jackson County Sheriff and the Jackson County Prosecuting Attorney in the exercise of their sound discretion to not enforce against any citizen an unconstitutional firearms law. Commissioner Mahoney would like that deleted. That's what the amendment is. He has a motion and support to that. Is there any further questions to the amendment? Seeing nor hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll to the amendment, please? Deletion thereof. Voting yes would delete.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Kennedy?
No.
Commissioner Duckham? No. Commissioner Mahoney? Yes. Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Elwell?
No.
Commissioner Bear?
No.
Commissioner Walls?
No.
Chairman Shotwell?
No.
6-2.
We have a motion and a resolution on the floor. Does anyone like to speak to the resolution and articles within it? Commissioner Bear.
I would like to correct two small typing errors. in the, in the fourth whereas, second line, the right of an individual to keep and bear arms, close quote. There's no start quote. Got to have a quote in front and back of what you're quoting. So I would like to add those quotes in front of keep.
Thank you. Next item?
In the sentence, in the paragraph, it is further resolved. Let me just get the last few words. Some discretion to not enforce against any citizen and unconstitutional firearms law. The D needs to be removed. It's and.
Tony, it was.
Pardon me?
You've got an old copy. I emailed her earlier today. If you pull up your online version, it's been corrected.
It was corrected on the online version?
Correct.
When was this online version issued? Oh, it doesn't matter. You got it.
I'm looking at it.
Mr. Chairman,
Are there any other Scrivener errors?
Mr. Chairman, I'll take that as a friendly amendment if we need to do that for the one error.
I'm going to declare those Scrivener's errors, sir. Any other items, Tony?
That's all I had, sir.
Commissioner Duckham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Commissioner Mahoney pointed out, about 230 years ago, our founding fathers gave us a...
Commissioner Duckham, please don't editorialize, sir. Speak to the resolution.
The AR-15 might fire 400 rounds.
Phil, you're editorializing, sir. You can use that under your commissioner comment. Any other items? Madam Clerk, could you post the vote?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I'm a yes. Resolution passes 6-2. At this time, I would like to go on to new business 17B, remuneration plan. Administrator Controller Overton, could you please speak to it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, first let me apologize that this is late to the board. The county surveyor, as you well know, elected position, brought this to us late and then tells us that we need to approve this evening. Or I should say we have to approve it by March 1st so we can send it to the state, lest we...
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Can we put it on hold for just a second? I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Okay. Could I have you please be quiet?
Hand it to the good guys with the guns, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Again, this is for the remonumentation plan from the county surveyor, and we have to put our revised plan into the state by March 1st, and if the board, there is no financial impact to us in the sense that if this is state dollars that we use to survey the corners across the county. As you can see by the attachments, they're well on their way. But at the same time, if we fail to approve this, the state will no longer give us the money. And the money varies depending on how much the state has available. It's somewhere between $60,000 and $90,000 annually that we use for surveying.
I move for approval of the plan.
I have a motion and support. Any questions further to the plan? All in favor? Madam Clerk, please post the vote.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We've returned to the second public comment. Public comment guidelines, each individual will state their name and have 2 minutes to address the board. You may only address the board under this public comment opportunity and may not yield your time to others. Board members will not debate or answer questions at this time. Any public comment?
Can I say something regarding the USS Arizona?
Yeah, sure. That's public comment. Sure, Stan.
This is basically I'm Stan Mazer. I live in Summit Township, and I've been shepherding the USS Arizona, a piece of it, as an exhibit at Cascades Park to be in close area of the 9/11 memorial. I'd like to read my latest email to Mr. Newman. He's the director of the Relics program. His office is in Honolulu. I wanted to give him an idea as to the progress, the status of how we're handling it on this end of it, if I may. Aloha, Mr. Newman. Just want to give you where we stand with the subject's official request letter. There was a Jackson County Parks Board meeting February 5th, of which obtaining a piece of the USS Arizona as a parks exhibit was approved. Then a Jackson County General Government Committee meeting was held February 10th, in which there was further approval. The final step of approval will take place February the 18th, today, by the Jackson County Commissioners Board. You should be getting the official request letter shortly thereafter. Then I go on to say, I'm still in hopes, if possible, of getting a sizable piece like the 5-foot by 4-foot piece of, I'm assuming, plate that was given to the World War II Foundation in Rhode Island. We can showcase a piece that size or even a little larger, as you can see from the attached photos of the 911 memorial.
Wait a second, Stan.
I hope you can accommodate my CB vision of the display. Again, I say it will be an honor and a privilege for our state and local community having that as an exhibit. Thanking you in advance for allowing this to happen. Go Blue, can do. The Go Blues, he's a Michigan graduate. Can do's, I'm the CB. Now, their response. Mr. Mazer, sir, Jim, that's...
Mr. Mazer, I apologize, you've run out of time, sir. We do
Jim and I
appreciate
are both very impressed by the 9/11.
Mazer, we appreciate it. You've run out of time, sir.
We're going to get it.
Hello again, Chris Brown from Liberty Township. Somebody else said something on the record about live by the sword, die by the sword. It also says that, then he said unto them, but now he that hath a purse, let him take it, and likewise his scrip, and he that hath no sword, sell his garment and buy one. So, also, I understand as far as the discretion goes, you guys are worried about the sheriff using his discretion and prosecutors using discretion, but in regards to discretion, just remember I like to quote somebody from one of the Virginia Second Amendment sanctuary meetings that the people that hid Anne Frank were breaking the law, but the people that killed her were following it. That's all.
Peter Bournemouth, I wanted to address the person who left, who got up here and said the Constitution were your God-given rights. I remind you, there is no God in the Constitution.
Evening, gentlemen. Jack Kulas, Summit Township. I don't know how I'm going to follow that, but I want to say thank you for passing the resolution. You all swore an oath to the Constitution, and you proved that you will follow that oath tonight. Now, like I said before in the past, this is not red versus blue. This is not black versus white. This is right versus wrong. And what you did tonight was right against the people who are trying to do wrong. Thank you.
My name again? Mike Anastasiadis, and thank you. I really appreciate what you all did tonight. And let me start by saying thank you for editorializing, because you just opened it up for me, Mr. Mahoney. Let me explain to you this way. Yeah, one musket, one round. So did the British. So the militia were fighting one musket, one round for one musket, one round. Our government has weapons of mass destruction called the AR-15 with 30-round magazines. So to keep our tyrannical government in check, we need AR-15s with 30-round magazines, because we're not going to fight them with one musket and one round. So this is not about keeping our burglars out too. It's also about keeping our government in check. Okay, there's your answer. But I appreciate the vote. Thank you, you did a wonderful job. Good evening.
Hello, I'm not happy about the vote. I just wanted to let you all know that I wasn't happy about the vote. I wasn't happy that Mr. Mahoney really wasn't given a chance to say what he was trying to say. So many other people began to speak over him. And I don't know if that's what the norm is, that even the commissioners don't get to say or have a piece of an opinion. I think it was very rude what some other commissioners did to Commissioner Mahoney. And I would hope that in the future that all the commissioners would be able to have their say and not to be talked over. And again, I say, put your guns down and lock them up.
Hi, back again, Val Toops for Jackson County Sheriff. It's been wonderful to watch you all vote and to listen to the reasoning behind your vote and to see the wonderful support that came into town to help you along in your decisions. But what I really see right here are men, mostly white men, and that's really great because white men have contributed a whole lot to this country and just don't get enough credit for it. So I give you wonderful credit this evening. Should I become elected as sheriff, you have just given me an extra tool that I may use. And God bless you all just for that. Thank you.
Not my sheriff. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Public comment is now closed. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Mahoney. Yeah, please.
Absolutely. So the first thing I want to say is I thought that after there is a motion and a second that we go into discussion, and when a commissioner is called on, discussion is allowed. That didn't happen today. I'm pretty disappointed about that. If I would have been allowed to finish my thought, my point was that, well, let me start here. I called the leadership of our county after getting a phone call from a young kid doing a project on gun violence in the city of Jackson. And they called me, I don't know how they got my phone number. They said they looked it up, but they kept whispering to somebody in the background. He just asked me how he got his phone number. So I don't know who exactly gave him my phone number, but either way, they said, Mr. Mahoney, we're doing a classroom project. We'd like to know what you're doing to help stop the gun violence in the city of Jackson. And I said, well, it depends on what aspect you're asking me that question from. I wear several hats. President of NAACP, I got a laundry list of things that I can say that we do, have done, are doing, and are working in partnership with many people in this community. However, I was very disheartened when I thought about the county of Jackson and what we're doing here in the county as county officials about the gun violence in the city of Jackson. The city is within the county. When I called the leadership, the response that I got was, we don't have a gun problem, we got a gang problem. Depends on who you ask, if that's true or not. I also think if you got comments, you should use the microphone. So, I've got a huge problem with that, because it was almost like we dismissed the fact that gun violence in the city of Jackson affects the entire county of Jackson. It was almost like, because the talk of gun control is a politicized issue, whether you're red or blue, let's be honest, it is a politicized issue, that because of that, we didn't want to discuss this at the county level. We don't want to talk about what we can do to help save these young kids' lives that are dying by guns on a weekly basis almost, probably more often than that. All of the shootings happening. Where are the guns coming from is the question. When I asked that question, the answer that I was given is in most cases, these aren't guns that are reported stolen. So where are the guns coming from? The guns are coming from law-abiding, rightful gun owners who have lost their guns and maybe not reported it. But instead of having a conversation, and that wasn't even my point of calling, my point was to really ask a serious question: what is the county of Jackson doing about gun violence? And the conversation immediately went to the protection of guns themselves. Now, what's crazy, over the weekend, my wife and I went and registered to become CPO holders ourselves. Happened on a date. We went to the gun range. Shout out to the locker, the lead bunker over on Michigan Ave. Great family over there. They welcomed us with open arms when we came in. We talked to them for probably 2 hours and then signed up to become CPO holders. I am a gun owner as well. I'm highly in support of the Second Amendment. However, this is my thing. God is God all by himself. He don't need no help. If it is a law, why are we writing more laws to protect that law? It is a law. So let me just read to you what we just passed. My concern, it is further resolved that this board affirms its support. We're given the okay for the Jackson County Sheriff and the prosecuting attorney to exercise their sound discretion, which isn't always so sound, and we saw that. You can Google our current sheriff and hear how sound his discretion is yourself. To not enforce against any citizen an unconstitutional firearms law at the end of that sentence. If it is a law, how are we going to stop it from being enforced and affirm our support for that law to not be upheld? That's ridiculous, and I'm vehemently against this.
Can I say one thing real quick?
No, sir, sorry, public comment's closed.
Oh, I thought I could speak on this. 'Cause I was gonna answer something you had said.
First, I want to thank everyone that came tonight, and that includes the people that I disagree with, which are the gun control advocates. I appreciate your opinion. I tend to disagree with you. One thing that wasn't read tonight, we talk a lot about the federal Constitution, but nobody read the Michigan Constitution, and it's very, very clear. It says, every person has a right to keep and bear arms for the defense of himself and the state. It can't be clearer. And all we did tonight was reaffirm that. So hearing all these scare tactics that we've opened it up for more violence, that's ridiculous. The majority of shootings happening around here, as was acknowledged by Commissioner Mahoney, is with unregistered weapons. So what's a red flag law going to do to stop it? Absolutely nothing. And I'll be damned if any law would take something away from someone to defend their family. Never. Not in this county. Furthermore, I want to thank Commissioner Mahoney for supporting a business in my district, the Lead Bunker.
other commissioner comments? Commissioner Bear?
Well, if I got my history right, Revolutionary War started Lexington, Concord, shot heard around the world. The colonists were going to repel the British army that was coming in to take their weapons. The standard military issue of the day was muskets. What the colonists repelled them with was muskets. So the colonists had weapons that were equivalent in every way to what the British military had. And why did I think we needed to pass this resolution? Because there are certain entities of government, certain states, they're just absolutely ignoring our constitutional guarantees, are absolutely ignoring our Second Amendment. And if we get some elected official in Michigan that's going to do away with our constitutional rights, and they're going to send in whom? The National Guard to collect our weapons? Now we need the same weapons, just like Lexington and Concord. We need the exact same weapons that the National Guard will be using against us when they try to disarm us. So I supported that motion. I was pleased to vote for it. The Second Amendment wasn't written so we could go duck hunting or deer hunting or rabbit hunting. Second Amendment was to defend ourselves when the government went rogue. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Darius?
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I also just wanted to say that I believe that everyone that serves this community that's been elected, that we all believe in and affirm the Constitution. And I don't think there's not one commissioner up here that doesn't believe in the rights of all citizens. But one thing I do want to just to mention as well is that I also believe that with the Constitution that we have, with the rights that we have, with the beliefs that we have, I also believe that we need to make sure that in all of our dealings and in all of our developments, that we need to make sure that we're making responsible decisions for all citizens and not just a few. And also just wanted to speak to this as well. In every meeting that I've been in as I'm finishing my first term, anytime we've gone into discussion, many commissioners have editorialized, we've spoke, we've shared our piece, and then we've gone into a vote. And so the fact that that process was not continued tonight is a problem I think we need to continue to address. So if there is a protocol, then we need to put something in writing, or we need to just practice what we've already been doing as we continue to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing further.
Commissioner Elwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Daniel, I can feel what you're saying about the violence in the city, and I think there are things that can be done, a number of things, but I'll also have to say that it is not law-abiding citizens with guns that are creating the problem. What can the county do? I think that can fall to the sheriff, but I think it's no secret that there's no trust at this point in time with the sheriff. I think there'll come a point in time when that trust is there, and then you'll see the sheriff's department working with the city police to work on that problem together. I don't think sending the sheriff's deputies into the city independently to try and tackle that problem is the solution. I think it's working with the city police who know the city and know the problem, and doing it with the trust of the community with the sheriff. So I feel what you're saying, and I agree.
Only once, sir. Only once, Tony. Any other commissioner comments? We have no closed session. Entertain a motion to adjourn? A motion and support. All in favor?